Hey, Heidi ho there, everybody. How we doing? Sean from the Good Dog. If you're not familiar with my work, who the hell I am, my hat, Fleur de Lis, a little check-in. Guys, decisions, decisions, decisions. Or we could even call it choices, choices, choices. I know some people complain about like me moving around, like it makes them seasick. Guys, get some Dramamine. I ain't stopping moving. Sorry. It's the best way that I can talk and get my ideas across. So I try and hold it as still as I can, but we got it. We got to work with what we got. Okay, so why will the same dog with the same issues in the same environment, same context, same everything make a different choice depending on who's holding their leash? That's a good one to ponder. A lot of people talk about, like, if we go like specifically about dogs, God, it's nice out. Specifically about dogs that redirect. A lot of talk in training land about like dogs that like on walks, you know, that have reactivity issues, couldn't think of the word, that have reactivity issues and then ultimately redirect on their owners or whoever's the handler. Let's talk about that specifically. So there's a lot of talk in training circles about that the dog can't help it. The dog is loading up, he's frustrated, he's annoyed, he's scared, he's trapped, he's whatever the cause might be. It doesn't really matter. And then the dog uncorks on whoever's holding the leash. I'm a firm, that's firm, 100% believer in that it's all choice-based. And you can disagree with me all day long, or you can agree with me, that's cool too. But I've just seen it too many times to be bamboozled and to buy into all the silliness. So the word on the street is, or on many streets, is that a dog can't help it. He gets so loaded up, so over-aroused, so into a space where he's just like, I'm freaking, and then he just goes. And it doesn't matter, like he's gonna bite whoever's holding the leash, and that's just the way it goes. Except, I've watched over and over and over again, dogs with redirecting issues give different responses in the same exact situations depending on who's holding that leash. Why? That's a question I want you guys to ask yourselves. Why are we getting different reactions? Well, the only reason could be is that the dog is making distinctions on their decisions based on data of whether this will work for them in a way that's beneficial or will not work for them in a way that's beneficial. And so, and beneficial doesn't have to be all great, right? The dog could still get corrected by the handler and still have that be a beneficial thing, right? The dog bites the handler and gets corrected, but the correction is not such a big deal, then that still works. If the dog bites a handler and the correction is a really big deal and is something that's more significant as far as the downside than the upside of that release, then you'll typically see a different decision being made based on that data. I'm hoping that this all makes sense to you guys, right? People think that dogs are just kind of walking around just like, oh, dog, I hate you, or I'm scared of you. No, dogs are walking around. See the dog, I hate you, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, I'm scared of you. And then in a, I don't know what it would be called, a gigasecond, millisecond, you know, whatever it is, their brain microprocessor goes, what do I think about this person holding my leash? Can I get away with this? This happens, like I said, in a split second. Could I uncork here and get away with this in a way that gives me enough release that even if there is a correction, usually there's not a correction, but even if there is a correction, it's still worth it. And in that little split millisecond or whatever we call it, the dog decides whether to bite you or not to bite you. So, a lot of times I've watched people with poor relationships with their dogs, or weak handlers, or even weak trainers take a dog and have a dog go after them. And then I've watched the opposite. I've watched strong owners, strong handlers, strong trainers, not necessarily doing anything differently mechanics-wise. We're not talking about like tools and the application. We're talking more about presence, a lot of it, and we'll get into like the actual tools part of it and application part. A lot of it is presence. A lot of it is what you bring to the table. And dogs feel that just like human beings feel that. Somebody walks into a room with a real presence and a real power about them, we feel it and we react accordingly. Same with dogs. Now, is it all presence? No, it's not. So if it was all presence, all we'd have to do, and I have a big kind of like hitch in my giddy up about like people just preaching presence, and that it all manifests, all like dog behavior manifests from like the reaction to your presence. But if you have presence and you have the insight and the wisdom to understand about preceding leverage and preceding relationship being a data gathering experience for a dog that causes decisions to be made down the line differently, then you're getting somewhere. I hope that makes sense, and I'm going to try and explain it. Basically, all of your interactions with a dog prior to going out on the walks, prior to seeing that dog, are what are the piece of information that are going to inform that dog about how he's going to react or how she's going to react when in that high pressure situation. So, presence. How do you deal with small moments? Do you share consequences that are believable for crappy small choices? When I talk about leverage, I'm always talking about like smaller moments with bigger consequences to create leverage for bigger moments, right? You've heard me talk ad nauseum about like crate and thresholds and things like that. If you can create a relationship prior of respect, and a lot of people have a problem with this in the dog training world. Ooh, it's that respect thing, it's that dominance thing, it's that like, you know, like trying to like, you know, oppress a dog. No, it's just the way that all of us work. Let's not make it fancy pants. It's just the way all of us work. Respect is something that all of us are aware of when we're in the presence of a creature or a being that has earned it or is deserving of that respect. And we're also aware when we're not in the presence of it. And all of our decisions are made accordingly. We all do it all day long as human beings. We make decisions every single, like probably every single minute based on what's around us, people around us, what we can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't do, what we can and can't get away with, right? So like, here's an example. And not that I would do this, but I've seen plenty of folks do it. I would never do it. Why would somebody drive down the freeway and be in a like trafficy moment or something like that, and a car kind of pulls in a little bit tight in front of them on the freeway? They flip them off. Maybe they say some choice words too. Right? Why would they do that? But if the same exact situation happened with a police officer pulling in, maybe even tighter, like on a motorcycle or in a police car, boom, pulls in, like cuts right in front of you, how come you wouldn't do the same thing? How come you wouldn't tell a police officer to go F himself or send him that nice salute? How come that wouldn't happen? Well, because we've been conditioned prior to that interaction to have a certain perception and feeling of respect for that police officer. Most of you, except for any of you like naughty, misbehaving people out there. The majority of people, 99% of us, that's how we'd react. It's about the preloading of the experience, the preloading of perceptions of people that create these different decisions, right? And if we're talking about like cops, we're talking about like why we'd be different with somebody on a freeway versus a cop. What I'm trying to connect for you guys is that the same choices you make all day long based on, do I need to respect this person or do I not need to? And what can I get away with? Because human beings are opportunistic, just own up to it. How is this happening in parallel in the dog world? Because it's happening. It's happening a ton. But people are uncomfortable with being in that position, that leadership position, that demanding respect position, that sharing consequences position, that punishing crappy behavior position. And so what they end up with is they end up front loading or preloading, giving data to the dog about who they are. And so then when they get into a tight situation and the car cuts in front of them, they flip you off. But in dog world, they just bite you. They bite your leg. It's just a decision, guys. It's just a decision based on who you are in that dog's world, but especially who you've been preceding that moment. So respect is a real thing, guys. Respect is something you can leverage. Respect is something you create with presence. It's something you create with intention. It's something you create with tools. It's something you create with strategy. It's something you create with everything that you use, that you interact with your dog. And if you're not using it, you're really, really, really setting yourself up to struggle. And you will probably continue to have, like, it's not just about redirecting. I'm just using that because it's an easy one. You'll have problems in a multitude of situations. Why do dog trainers typically not struggle in the same way that owners do? Because we have a different relationship with the dog straight out of the gate. We understand that respect is absolutely essential for a healthy relationship to be based on, for the foundation to be poured and then to move from there. So that's how we start. We don't start with hugs and kisses if we're smart dog trainers. We start with respect. We start with, these are the rules, these are the expectations, this is what's required of you. And then there's corresponding corrections, consequences, punishment, whatever you want to call it, for breaking that stuff. That's how we start a relationship. And so we start off on a different foot. And that's the foot where a dog goes, I should listen to you. It's probably best for me if I listen to you. Now, people are going to say, because they're afraid of you. Well, are you afraid of the police officer? You might be. You should be. Because they can make your life miserable if you do crappy, shitty, dumb things. And to be honest, a dog should have, what's the term, righteous fear? A righteous fear of whoever is, I think it's Barbara Woodhouse? I'm really going way back. Of whoever is handling or working with them. Now, righteous fear doesn't mean they should be walking around fearful of you, but it means righteous fear to me is a respectful, deferential space mindset that a dog is in. And if you have that, oh boy, I can already anticipate the comments coming. He said fear. He said dogs should be afraid. He said that, oh my God, the heads are gonna explode, computers are gonna burst into flames. It's gonna be craziness. I can already see it. But you use that to help dogs, just the same way that police and society's rules help us to flourish and make good choices and then become patterned into those good choices to where they become default. We do the same thing with our dogs. We use the structure and the rules and the expectations, and then along with that, the consequences, the punishment for breaking that stuff. And then you have dogs that understand how to move through this world, how to create new patterns. Let me clarify that. By doing that, you create the good patterns in the dogs where they can move through the world in a proper sense, in a healthy way, in a non-biting, non-barking, non-bullying kind of fashion, right? So I hope that makes sense, guys. I hope heads haven't exploded and obscured computers with all sorts of gray matter to where people can't respond or interact. But I hope that this concept of respect, I'm so, why am I big on it? I'm big on it because I've watched it work over and over and over again. I'm big on it because I've watched dogs make crappy decisions with people they don't respect and injure them, or just misbehave. And then I've watched dogs make really great decisions, not injure somebody and not misbehave, simply because they respect the person that is holding their leash or working with them. Are they afraid of them? They should have, there should be that righteous fear of, if I do something really crappy, dumb, whatever, there should be a consequence that's valuable enough that I don't want it. Is that fear? Yeah, you're afraid of like the consequence. I don't want to get a speeding ticket. I don't want to get pulled over. I don't want to go to the slammer. Am I afraid of those things? You bet your butt. Yeah. Do they help keep me on the straight and narrow? You bet your butt. We all need this stuff. We all need, and heads are gonna explode, the threat of consequences, the threat of possibility of consequences keeps this whole world together, keeps us all behaving and playing nicely together as much as possible. Same thing goes for the dog world. People don't want to talk about it. Nobody's down for this. Doesn't sound great, whatever. Sorry. Just that old real life thing. So I hope this conversation opens up some other conversations, maybe gets some people thinking. I always try and make comparisons between the human world and the dog world because it's easier for us to kind of connect to that. And I think if you think about how you feel about authority figures and the possibility of consequences being a giant director and motivator of behavior for yourself, then it's very easy to see how the same thing works for dogs without it being something that destroys your spirit, without it being something that ruins you or has broken you or is horrific or abusive. It's just true, it's just real, it's just what works, it's just how we work. So if you can see that it works for you and you're still okay, then maybe you can see that it works for dogs and they're still okay. And that being concerned, worried, or afraid of a consequence that might be unsavory for a poor choice isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. I'm not talking about abuse, I'm not talking about police abuse, and I'm not talking about dog abuse or police abuse towards pedestrians, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about appropriately doled out corrections, consequences, punishment for breaking known rules, for making poor choices, for making dangerous maneuvers, things like that. That's it, right? Respect works, guys. Respect keeps this orb rolling around or spinning around. It keeps everybody playing nice, and the same thing goes with your dogs. I watch too many dogs make decisions based on respect over and over and over again. That's why you can't BS a dog. You can't just put the tools on them and get away with it. You also have to cultivate a relationship to where using those tools, you start to leverage them to create, and if you've got your head in the right and heart in the right spot, you can leverage them into a great relationship, into a great space, and then you can get great stuff from your dog. Your dog should be afraid of biting you. Your dog should be afraid of biting you. Your dog should be afraid of being a jackass, of trying to attack somebody or another dog or misbehaving. The level and degrees of that fear are corresponding with the levels and degrees and severity of what we're talking about. So how worried should a dog be about jumping up? Enough that they don't do it, right? Doesn't need to be a lot. How afraid should a dog be of biting you? I think they should be very afraid of that. We're not talking about abuse, we're not talking about horrific stuff, but I'm saying the dogs should be afraid of that. Just like a child should be afraid of walking up and slapping their parent. Just like you should be afraid of flipping off a cop or walking up and smacking a cop, right? We don't do that with authority figures that actually have respect and have the ability to share valuable consequences. We don't do it. Why don't we do it? Because we don't want the consequences. Simple stuff, guys. So, I'm gonna wrap this up. It's the respect talk, consequences talk, all the stuff nobody wants to talk about, heads exploding. He said fear, he said punishment. Ah! Guys, my only goal is just to share the truth of what I've seen in the human world, what I've seen in the dog world, in the hopes that it helps you guys wrap your head around some knowledge that might be opposed to what's the typical, what you hear most of the time, what you're gonna Google and typically find, and so you have a fighting chance at having a great relationship with your dog. Maybe a great relationship with your kids too. Never know. Could like ripple on out. Anyways, Sean from The Good Dog. I'm gonna get out of here. Hope you guys have a great time, a great day, and a great time. And any questions, hit me up in the comments. Any snarky, silly, cheesy malarkey, you know the rules. You're banned, you're deleted, you're toast. You want to have a real conversation, want to talk about anything in a respectful, remember, respectful fashion, because it's a dictatorship on my page. Otherwise, you're toast. So I don't deal with any of that silliness. You want to get on there and share something valuable? Please do. Got questions that are real, honest? Ask away. All right? Hope you guys are well. Talk to you soon. Sean from The Good Dog, blowing up heads. See you guys.